deduct, it should be, I think.
All right. For people who don't have any of these are what we're working with.
Are these the new ones?
No, these are new ones. These are the ones that had the errors.
Okay.
So,
This is what we already have, right?
all
Yeah.
right.
Because see it?
Except for 15 and 16 aren't
How you got it?
fixed.
What?
She saw it right away.
What's that?
That error.
Which one?
The one at the top.
Yeah,
Without the planet sign thing?
Oh, yes. Well, the new ones have, okay, the new one, it's been fixed. It's been fixed.
But the back hasn't.
All right. These are what we're working with tonight. Throw the ones away from last week because I went through again very carefully and I found errors.
So do you really want me to look through these for you? Or were you just joking?
Of course I want you to look through. Take a, if you have these blank ones, make sure you take some along so you can take them to the duplicating machine. Federal tax dollars have to, and federal, state, and municipal tax dollars have to.
You able to email those things too?
What?
You able to email those as well?
Yeah.
I mean, because I got the paper, I can make this.
Send me a reminder. I always forget things.
What,
Experience
is this the second bunch here, or what is that?
Yeah, the first were blank. These are Jay Gould.
Oh,
Did you get?
no, I
Did
didn't.
you get one of the other batches?
Oh, there's a column that didn't exist.
I guess I should
Is that
have
what that
handed
was?
it to one to you
Yeah.
and then given it to.
There was something, I put some figures in there and I couldn't figure out what they were at all.
Get one of those. No,
You didn't reverse the 15, 16 thing for Jay, or did you?
The 1560, I know what you're talking about.
Oh.
no, did we get a new one of these?
Yes.
So what was reversed?
Yes.
That you fixed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Were we supposed to get something like that, look like this?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Huh?
Oh, you did, but you plus zeroed instead of minus.
Yeah.
Zero.
No, instead of plus
Yeah,
5 and
one.
4.
Some of the numbers changed. I told you there were a lot of errors.
Okay.
No, look, here's the old one.
Okay.
We got, we keep one.
We had a cut. These numbers are different, but this whole column doesn't correspond to anything.
Okay.
So those are all different, I think. The bottom part was the same.
It's very difficult filling out forms on a screen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do this at work and I make errors every time I do it. Somebody's always picking them up.
like you? Oh.
All right.
No, I'm teasing.
No. I missed them.
Well, that's why you have two sets of eyes. If something really important has to go out, I always have somebody check
Which
my
is the
work and
Caden
vice
house, like the
versa.
third house?
Third,
Okay.
sixth, ninth.
So what is what is the other one called?
Your
An angular
succeed.
cadence?
Whatever you're
Succeed.
looking for, yeah.
Okay, you see what you're thinking. Yeah.
Blank, keep a second.
All right.
We're so unruly.
Now, what,
What is this here? Don't tell me there's still an error in here.
There's a couple.
Oh, that's something that's coming up. All right. What we did last time is we did step number 14, which is column number 14. We just put down all of the aspects and the estimations off the table for them for each planet, and then we added them up. Then we did number 15, relations that have to do with signs and how they can influence. And we spent the whole evening talking about the planet sign considerations. Now we made one error in there. In column DD, we forgot to add the fact that Mercury was the dispositor of the ruler of the ascendant, which was itself, and so that wasn't added in there. And then there were some spurious numbers in it all together, and we ended up in columns 15 which we had transposed with column 16 on the main planet worksheet, we ended up with some errors, and so that's as far as we got. This time, we're working with the planet house considerations, and we'll spend this evening looking at those and trying to explain them. All right, first in column A, we have Mercury with a plus 60. Now, compared to everything else, that is an enormous number. This is to state that the ruler of the ascendant gets automatically at least a full aspect to it, an average aspect, or a little bit more than average aspect. What you would do if you have Aquarius, Pisces, or Scorpio rising, that's up to you. I usually give them about the same number. I give them a 50 or a 60 if it's one, for both Mars and Saturn, or Jupiter and Neptune, or Saturn and Uranus and Mars and Pluto, when they are co-rulers of the ascendant. The reason the ascendant is so important is it rules the physical body. And the physical body is the sum total of all of our past evolutionary experience of any kind as it gets distilled into form. So that is extremely important. Moreover, the ascendant and first house rule early childhood. And almost every school of psychology feels that the majority of the character is built into the infant within the first 3 years. So the first 3 degrees, the ascendant, and the first 3 degrees following it by progression are exceedingly important. The reason for all of this is that things are built into the physical body from past lives in childhood during the early years. The things in the inner bodies, they're live, and things from past lives can come in at any moment. But then physical body, it's a more difficult call. Another reason for the importance of the ascendant is because everything, like our appearance in the external world, what we show to the external world is shown by the ascendant. And our take on the external world and what it means to us and how we see things is determined by the ascendant. So it's exceedingly important that be registered, and that's why there is such a strong thing. All right. Then step B is something like step A, only diluted and spread across 4 houses instead of 1. The angular houses are the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, and the 10th. And the idea of a planet being in an angular house means that it's stronger. Again, because each of those departments of life are significantly more important. The 1st and the 7th are self and counter-self, or me and you. And those basic, oh my goodness, I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
That's you.
And so the basic you and I relationships, and the way we do things, is like what the 1st and 7th is like. Your boss or your parents are like the 10th and 4th. And those are very important relationships. So the angular houses represent the most fundamental horizontal and vertical relationships. And so any planet that is in the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, or the 10th is automatically strengthened. But cadent houses are weakened, but not as significantly as angular houses are strengthened. The cadent houses are the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, and the 12th. And the idea for the weakness in cadent houses is that they represent very often vicarious forms of experience. Experience that is learned through other people rather than directly experiencing it yourself. Like if you have Mars in the 1st house, you're directly going to experience cuts, burns, contusions, or whatever. But in the 3rd house, or like in the 6th house, you might feel that from other people that are suffering. And in the 3rd house, you'd read about other people suffering. And so the kinds of experiences, like the 9th house is theoretical experience. And so the cadent houses represent kinds of experiences that are not immediate. They're indirect, and as a consequence, they're always a little bit weaker. Now, I suppose you could subtract a tiny amount for planets ruling the cadent houses, or add a tiny amount for planets ruling the angular houses, but I would be a little bit shy about doing that. I think that's carrying it just a little too far as things are concerned.
I have a question. What if you have a planet that is near the cusp, is in the 6th house, but it's almost like a degree away from being
In the 7th?
Yeah, would it actually be considered?
It's still
like
in the 6th, yeah.
Okay,
It's casting some influence into the 7th, so it's close to being angular. I would, so you take a little bit away for it being cadent and add a little for it being angular.
Okay, so you wouldn't throw it into the 7th if it was like a degree away then?
No, but it would have some influence there.
Why did you only give Mercury a +10?
I only give +10s for anything that was angular.
Okay, because you said up to
It's
12 or
it's just a judgment call. Yeah, it said that add up to 12 is a max. I don't always give a max.
It just seems to be within the critical 3 degrees.
And it's
you
my
were talking
nature
about.
that I try so hard to be positive that what I often do is I don't take off as much on negatives as I add on positives. That's just my nature. Looking back over many charts that I've done in the past, I see that that's the way I operate. So I don't know if that's,
I was just wondering.
Yeah, if you look at everything, if you look at all the totals, any judgment calls are going to all amount to less than 1% of the full totals. All right.
One other question. You said something, I don't know, I didn't catch what you said really, but you said something about Aquarius, Pisces, Scorpio would get +60,
Yeah.
and I don't know what you were talking about.
That's if you have an ascendant that has dual rulership.
Oh.
Scorpio has Mars and Pluto as rulers, and Aquarius has Saturn and Uranus as rulers, and Pisces has Jupiter and Neptune as co-rulers.
Did it? I always thought it was more like Scorpio was Pluto and Pisces.
Yeah,
Neptune
that's
and Uranus was Aquarius.
He's
was
doing
Venus.
old school.
That's a modernist superstition.
So you really consider them those 3 to have dual rulers then?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So what did you
Ronald
say about
Reagan certainly wasn't an out Aquarian. Man, he was a lot of Saturn there. He was almost a throwback.
So what did you say?
I said that it's a judgment call.
No, what did you say if it's dual rulership?
Yeah, you give each planet some. And it's up to you to decide how much. That's where the judgment comes in.
So, but you, in other words, divide it up.
I
so we get up to
doubt
16
that I
with
would
two
ever
planets.
give an octave planet the same full 60 that I would a fundamental planet. Because the octave planets are weak, and we're coming to that, and that's going to be probably the biggest argument.
But what I was saying, if it's two planets, would you give one planet 20 and one 40, depending, or would
Yeah.
it still add up
Yes.
to 60 totally? Wouldn't
No,
add up to
no,
120, would it?
like Aquarius, because Uranus is pretty much established, I would probably give a 50 and a 40 or something like that. 50 for Saturn and 40 for Uranus.
Huh.
You just have to look at a lot of charts and look at houses that have dual rulerships and see if they are always ruled by one, or if it's ruled by both, or or it's ruled by the other. And that's where the thing about astrology is you want to look at as many charts as you can and then take note of things as you go.
Well, that's interesting to me because I always assumed that they were just
Yeah.
ruled by the one, so that's new.
Yes.
Thank you.
There's a whole bunch of new things.
It's like
here,
before
Don.
they discovered the new planets, Pluto, Uranus, and stuff like that, then they had the co-rulership in older astrology.
Mhm.
There's more there too. Yeah. Basically, we redid everything we did last time. All right. We're at column C in the planet house considerations. Up to 15 points for elevation, or minus 15 points for depression. If you note planets that are near to the horizon, like Mercury and the Sun, I didn't do anything with them. Uranus, which is very high in the heavens, it's the highest in the heavens, I gave a plus 15. Neptune, which is also pretty high, got a plus 10.
And you consider those elevations then, and then
Yes.
the ones that would be like in the fourth house or so would be depression?
Yes, those are the terms for several hundred years now.
Okay, I'm not that old.
So, again, elevation turns out to be pretty significant. Elevation and depression. So, of all of the things we're looking at, that's a pretty strong hit, a plus 12 or a plus 15 or something in that neighborhood. The idea is, it's almost a visual idea, that the more direct that a planet is in its angle, the stronger its influence, its astrological influence. And we can see that in the simplistic way every day. If you take the sun and you look at it right after sunrise, it's not very hot. There's a big difference between when it's below the horizon and when it's above the horizon. But if you look at it at noon, when it's bearing straight down on you, its effect is much stronger. And what is it? Mad dogs and Englishmen are the only people that will work in the noonday sun or something like that.
What do you mean do not overlap with step C?
Step C said, don't make Uranus strong, extra strong, because it is angular also. Angular is one measurement, and elevation is another measurement. You have to keep
So you
them-
don't double the points there
Yes.
because you've used them elsewhere.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because if you count something twice, that's like mere daily voting. And that's not legit. It may be all right for getting your guy to be candidate, but it doesn't give you a clear view of reality.
But just some planets are angular, but they're not elevated, right? So
Yeah,
couldn't
well, you
use-
measure them, you give them credit for being angular, but you don't give them credit for being elevated. That's why they're in two separate columns.
Really?
So would you say do not overlap with step B instead, C?
What is step B here?
That's the angular and cadent thing?
Oh, yes. Well, that should be, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's a typo. That should say, do not overlap with step B. Wait,
Want a pen?
no, I'll remember it, I guess.
Well, Uranus is
Yeah.
angular and elevated. And you
Right, but it's measured in both cases.
That's why you don't
But when
overlap.
I made the designation, when I give the plus 10
Yeah.
for Uranus being angular, that's strictly because it's angular.
Yeah.
and it's given the same strength as Mercury for a plus 10 because Mercury is also angular. But if I were fudging in my mind, then I'd say, well, I'd give Uranus a plus 12 because it's the 10th house. That would be including elevation into it. And then when you came to measure the elevation or to estimate the elevation in column C, what you would be doing is you would have looked at it twice. The object is to cover everything of the same degree of relative significance. That's one of the objectives. You want to measure everything that's of the same significance. Now, there are levels of significance that are not included in this, such as with fixed stars are not included in this. Specific degrees of the zodiac are not included in this. Terms and decanates are not included in this. Minor aspects are not included in this. If you wanted to do that, you'd have to redo the whole system so that you took into account everything of the same relative significance. Because you're not being scientific if you say, well, there is this fixed star thing, and it's the 6th degree of Taurus. Like if you look only at the fixed star and not at looking at the individual degrees of the zodiac, you're adding something and you're giving it significance while ignoring some significance of something else that might be of the same degree. So one objective is to cover everything of the same degree of significance, and the one thing to avoid is to not duplicate, so that you count the same thing twice.
And I deduce that you meant to say deduct?
Yes.
Okay.
No, you can say deduce. Deduce works in that sense too.
Okay.
It's in the English language. That's old-fashioned. But we will do that. If you give me a marked up sheet that is correct, I'll make sure that the next version that comes out is all.
It probably has the same logical base, entomological structure.
Yeah.
Deduce,
Yep.
meaning to check things off,
Yep.
and to eliminate.
Yep. All right, we're at number D. Or column D. All right.
Letter D.
Letter D.
You poor guy, you're not going to get through this tonight, are you?
Certainly, we're going along just fine here. We'll probably be out of here in an hour.
Let's slow you down.
All right. In D, what we're doing is taking in abstract agreements or disagreements with the house. And I do it only with rulerships and detriments, and not with exaltations and falls. So we're saying Venus is in the 2nd house, and in abstract, Venus rules the 2nd house, so she gets a few points there. Saturn is in the 5th house, and Saturn is normally in detriment in the 5th house, so it loses a few points, just because it abstractly does not agree with the concept of that. It's like saying Saturn is a planet that is not big on expression and not big on giving. And it's like saying Venus is automatically big on materials and wealth and things like that. Yes?
The question is if you gave it a couple of points because even in abstraction it rules the 2nd house, why do you give it a -3?
Because Saturn is abstractly in detriment in the 5th house.
I'm talking about Venus.
I gave it a +5.
Am I reading it wrong
We're
Yeah.
looking at
D.
column
now?
D.
Okay,
Not
okay,
D.
okay.
Okay.
Then never mind, I see.
Okay. All right.
Would you give Venus more points if it were in the 7th house?
No.
Oh, you went.
No. I don't think that Venus likes. In fact, I am one of those people that thinks that the primary rulership of Venus is Taurus and not Virgo. And I'm one of those people that believe that the primary rulership of Virgo, of Mercury is Virgo.
So what's the Libra with the primary ruling of Libra?
the ruler is still Venus, but Venus is not as strong in its feeling at home in Libra as it is in Taurus. That's my experience.
Thought it's wheat size, not sugar size.
What would be worthy of a 7?
What?
What would be worthy of 7 points?
I don't know. I'm a little Scotch sometimes about handing things out.
Maybe if it were in Taurus in the second house.
No, that would be double adding again. Because it being in Taurus is already covered in the bottom chart.
He grades on a curve.
So Mercury is stronger in Virgo than in Gemini?
Yeah.
Because Virgo is more detailed and precise or something?
I just give you the options of maxima and minima so that you can get a feel. It's ballpark. I'm not trying to set down something. I think this is about the 5th or 6th time I said I'm not trying to set down something in stone. I'm trying to give just a general thing for you so that you can get the feel of it without getting too far out of bounds.
I thought it might be because it was dual rulership, the planet that ruled a single house.
Yeah.
Might be
You
stronger.
can think that way, and it might be valid. But for 2 points, I'm not going
I'm just trying to get how you arrive at a lot of this from as many angles as possible.
Yeah.
Makes it easier to understand.
experience, yeah. And things do go through your mind, and you're thinking these things. I even talk to myself when I'm doing this kind of thing. All right.
That's the taste we should have.
All right. Column E. Column E is subtract up to 10 points for intercepted planets.
Let's see.
Again, didn't do anything with the max here because I just don't. Very rarely that I like giving out maxes.
What do we have intercepted?
When we talk about intercepted, do you consider planets that are intercepted? I've heard that planets that are intercepted aren't able to express themselves. They're more internalized.
Usually whatever's intercepted on one side is intercepted on the other.
Yes, right.
Interception is a house phenomenon. And it therefore has to do with opportunity. And I wouldn't say that it has anything to do with internal or external opportunities. Now there are several different interpretations for interceptions. I work primarily with 2, but once in a while it's necessary to go to a 3rd. Things are out of balance when you have an intercepted sign. And for every intercepted sign, there is a house that has the same sign on the front door as on the back door. That's just the way things go. Now, suppose somebody specialized in a past life in one thing and ignored something else in life. In this life, when they're reborn, the little tiny house that has the same sign on the front and the back is what was overdone in the past. And what the house that is intercepted is what was neglected. And it means that there are so many opportunities, assuming that each degree of the zodiac, as the sun moves day by day, or any cusp moves a degree a year or something like that, it means that there are so many opportunities that you can't get at them all. And there are contingencies. The cusp at the beginning of the house, that part a little bit before you get to the intercepted sign, are things that are hung over from the past that you have to take care of before you can get at the intercepted house. Now, if there is a planet between the cusp and the intercepted house, that planet usually has some kind of contingency. The other interpretation is the little house with the same thing in the front and the back is what you're sacrificing. It's what you're sacrificing so you have more opportunities of another kind. So that, like take the Jay Gould chart, there may be a sacrifice of communication in order to have an abundance of opportunities to speculate. Let's not talk, let's just speculate. And that, he's sacrificing one to get at the other. But when you make so much, like when you have so much on your plate, you can't get at it all, and you have that same kind of thing again. Now, the question is, which twinned house, which is the short house with the twins on the front and the back door, is associated with which intersection? There is no rule for that. You just have to see which works. Like I just gave you a for instance here, saying that I associated the third house being the twinned house with the fifth house being the intercepted house, but it may not be that way. It may be that because there is a stinginess in communication that there is a lot of unfulfilled things with the interception in the 11th house, and the friendships, a lot of things get unsaid with friendships. And it may be work both ways. That, like each twin might be associated with both of the two intercepted houses. But those are the kinds of things that you look for. Intersections, I don't rate them of really high importance. Because intersections have to do, they weaken a planet both in its direct influence and in its indirect influence, but much more in its indirect influence. Because suppose you have Leo intercepted, Cancer or Leo intercepted. That means that since those are the only houses that are only signs that are ruled by the sun or the moon, if either of those signs are intercepted, the indirect influence of the sun or the moon is greatly curtailed because they do not rule the cusp of a house. Because there is no cusp that has Leo on it, that means the sun does not have an indirect influence except very mildly with anything that's happening in Leo. All right, everybody gets what's being said here. All right.
For once.
Well, I mean, my understanding of an intercepted house has just changed. I understood the intercepted house to be the small twinned house.
No, intercepted means that it's intercepted between the cusps of two other signs, the cusps of the houses.
Okay, I do have a question. When you say twinned, what do you mean?
Twinned means they're two alike. Look at the second and third house, the third and fourth house cusps. Both cusps in the Gould chart are twins. They both got that Leo sign there, right? The front door and the back
Second
door.
and third, not third and fourth.
No, the third and fourth.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah,
the
the front
beginning of
and
the
back
third.
door of the third house
Right,
are
okay,
twins. They're
I
both
see.
Leos.
I see.
So
Okay.
you're saying if the sign is missing, if a planet sign is not on the cusp of the house, then then the indirect influence is weakened.
Yes, correct.
And is that generally the planet? No, I guess.
Since most of the planets have two signs that they rule or co-rule, they're not going to lose. They're not going to lose everything. You never really lose everything, but it's the sun and the moon that are most disadvantaged by having their sign intercepted.
So what you're saying, though, in this case, would be that the sun and at least the sun in this house in this chart, and
The sun in this chart affects both the third and the fourth house.
so it would be enhanced. If I
Yes,
understand you
yes,
correctly.
we're coming to that. That's coming down the line,
Okay.
coming down the pipe.
Taurus is intercepted. And
Venus still has a cusp of Libra that she has an indirect
and what about
influence.
Virgo? Gemini, okay.
And so then the other twins, of course, being the 9th and the 10th.
Yes. Yes. Intercepted houses will always be opposite each other, and twin houses will also always be opposite each other. All right. We're at number E, or number F. Subtract up to 7 points for a planet ruling an intercepted sign. Well, where are we here?
F.
We're F, ruling an intercepted sign. There's an error in here.
Mine's cool. We don't see.
Yeah, I think so.
There's errors in here.
Yeah.
I did this on the fly.
Yeah, Venus.
This would say, yeah, so we'll have to rework everything again, and I'll have to figure it in
Yeah.
next time.
What is
The
that?
intercepted signs are Aries and Libra, and that means that Mars and Venus would lose points.
What went wrong?
I don't know.
Well, you've got that.
That's what you have. I mean, what's the
But
error?
you-
Yeah, that's what I don't know.
Not a column E.
No.
Well, not a column F. Oh, all right. Yes, that's right. All right. I was looking at the wrong chart on.
Oh, so this is okay.
So it is
Yes.
okay.
It is okay. Yes.
It's easy for you.
Now say that, let's see.
Because this is rulership again. This isn't the planet.
That's right.
Okay.
But the planets are a lot more influential than having its sign on the cusp, isn't it? I mean, if a planet is in, let's say Venus is in a house or has an aspect to something, that's a lot more important than having Libra and Taurus on the cusp of the house, isn't it?
No,
Or is it
the direct influence and indirect influence are equally strong. It's very hard to tell sometimes which is more important in a chart.
Really?
Yes. The direct influence of planets in the houses that they are situated in is a relatively modern thing in astrology. The emphasis that is placed on it. If you go back about 400 years, classic being William Lilly's Christian astrology, a modest approach, he does almost nothing with direct in natal charts. He does use direct influences in horary, but he does almost nothing in natal charts working with direct things, and only with a couple of houses does he work.
So then if two houses, say, have Gemini on the cusp, that's pretty important.
Yes.
So then there would be like 3 cusps in the chart ruled by Mercury.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right, let's look at column G. This is one of those judgment again things, whether I don't give any very strong things here, but whether the planet agrees with its depositor, agrees or disagrees. So let's look at that. Mercury, the Sun is given nothing because its depositor is Venus, and there isn't necessarily any special thing between Venus and the Sun. Venus is deposited by the Moon, and they're both very feminine drawing planets, so Venus gets a little bit of strength from its depositor. Mercury is self-deposited. You can't get more agreement than that, but I'm scotch about going to a full +7, and so I went to a 5. The Moon is deposited by Mercury, and I don't see anything too special about that, nor do I see anything too special about Saturn being deposited by Mercury. Jupiter is deposited by the Moon, and I don't think you see anything special there.
Go back to the Moon. Explain that one.
The Moon is
Yeah.
deposited by Mercury. And what is the agreement between Mercury and the Moon? Cum si, cum sa. Nothing special there.
Because Virgo's on the rules
on the
the
cusp.
house. And
Virgo's on the cusp.
Yes,
Okay, it isn't the house.
last week we dealt with dispositors. This week we're dealing with depositors.
Yeah, it isn't the in the house. It is the cusp.
Because
Yeah.
it's intercepted,
Yeah.
even though it's in
Because
Libra.
each house is a department of activity, and the front cusp is the door to that house, and the key that opens that door is the ruler of the cusp.
Well said.
Yes. Wait, well, I said it last time.
I didn't hear it.
So the depositor is.
You ought to see. When are you giving me the key to your apartment?
I still didn't hear that.
Once you give it a deposit.
Now you had a serious question. Go ahead.
So the key that opens the door is the ruler. Wait, the key that opens the door is the ruler of the cusp. You said, and that's the depositor.
Yes.
Okay. So what's that's the depositor?
It deposits. It puts it like into a box or into a house. A dispositor gives something disposition, and that's the flavor of the sign. Those are easy ways to remember depositors and dispositors.
Okay, I like the
Think
key
of a
analogy.
safety deposit box. You got to have a key to get it open, and that's what puts something in the box in the house.
Give me an example of a dispositor.
The dispositor. Let's just take the sun. It's classic here. The dispositor of the sun is Mercury. The depositor of the sun is Venus.
Because the sun is in Gemini, therefore that.
Yeah, it has a mercurial disposition. The sun has a mercurial disposition.
Depositor is a little bit harder to understand.
Yes. Usually, in general, though, depositors are more important because it's crucial to get that door open.
Okay.
What if you can't find the house?
I know you haven't even given me the address yet.
Well, look at my chart. Do we know when I was born?
I think we have two different conversations. Intentional.
Okay, so the depositor is Venus because that's on the cusp of the 12th house.
Yep.
And the dispositor is Mercury because Gemini rules Mercury.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Mars is deposited by Jupiter, Neptune. And it's not really too keen with either of those. Uranus is deposited by its planetary opposite, and it doesn't get along with its planetary opposite at all. And the funny thing is there's a mutual anti-reception between between Uranus and Neptune. They are in each other's. They can't say really an anti-reception, but they are planetary opposites, and they are planetary opposites that deposit each other and dispose each other, and that's kind of unpleasant. I suppose you could have given a little more than a -2. You could give maybe a -3. If you were really extravagant, you could give a -4, but I'm not up to really extravagant things.
We're in the situation now again.
I'm just not following this really.
Up here with Uranus and Neptune.
People being born right now are in this situation.
What we're saying, Jerry, is that Uranus is a spiritual feminine and Neptune is a spiritual masculine. And that they are planetary opposites, and so they're always seesaw opposite to each other. One is the mystic and one is the occultist. But the key to the door to opening up the occultism, in this case, the Neptune, happens to be Uranus. And Uranus and Neptune does not have a really good agreement with it, so it's weakened by that.
So are you ever gonna print up a sheet on like which planets like each other and which aspects like
not
each
if I
other?
can help it.
Okay. So we're supposed
You
to
keep
kind
on,
of.
and you keep bothering me. I might do something very vague. I'm very hesitant about being authoritative. I like sharing ideas. I like sharing outlooks, but I don't want to be such a person that I'm an authority that this always means this and this is always looked at that way, because I think it would be inhibitive of people getting their own feeling of the flavor of things and what it means to them.
See, he's like the cat.
No, I just don't want it to be like a catechism. You know, like this. You know, this doctrinal point means this and only this. And if you don't get it, you're damned and going to hell. And you can't even consider anything else. And this way, if you're left on your own, you have to consider things on your own.
But not to be argumentative, but for people who are not as studied, it kind of provides a guidepost. You can always put a disclaimer, but if you don't give people the guidepost, they're going to find it someplace else.
Yes, but on the other hand, I've recommended that everybody read biographies and take everybody in their family and get a feel for what works and what doesn't work and how it works. And
back in my court.
You might want to interpret something different in each case, because like people are pretty creative, and what are sour combinations of notes to you or I to a great composer, they can make things sound pretty good. And in such a case, what would normally be considered a sour relationship between two planets would have to be considered something very positive. And some people in their lives might do that. And if you don't, like, I have to change myself too, because sometimes it isn't like it was the last time you looked at a horoscope.
I know what you're saying. I'm just seeing her point of view.
Yeah. Are you saying recording, Bill?
Pardon me?
Are you saying recording? Because it's been going back and forth between your court and mine.
Oh, okay.
You could say
Pain,
that
agony.
planets usually these ones like each
In
other,
accordance.
but sometimes, not always.
Yes, but if I did
Whatever
that,
you don't want to. Then
if I did that, I would probably want to give examples of charts where exceptions were there, so that you could get a feel of what the exceptions were, because that would be the next question that came down the line, and I would feel obligated to do that too. You have to try very hard to not become authoritative. And you look like you had a question.
Just go on, because I'm not getting this.
Oh, which don't you get? You don't.
Well, for example, I don't see where you're getting the -1 for Mars. I mean, I'm looking and I don't
I'm
see
just saying that Mars does not get along very well with either Jupiter or Neptune. Its best does not come out, and I'm saying that rates a -1.
Which isn't very much.
Yep. Okay. With Jupiter or Neptune?
Well, because Jupiter and Neptune rule the cusp of the house that Mars is in. The 11th house. On the cusp of it is Pisces, and the co-rulers of Pisces are Jupiter and Neptune.
so why doesn't Mars get along with Jupiter and Neptune?
There's usually a standoff pride with Jupiter, and it's just too crude often with Neptune. Neptune is finesse. You get it now, Jared?
Yeah, I was looking like all I could see was the planets and the signs they were in, forgetting to look at the cusp.
Yeah.
It's hard to go back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't drive.
Well, it all depends what you're looking for. If you're trying to get at what kind of opportunity springs this person, or what's necessary to bring this into action, and you're always thinking depositor. But if you say, what does this planet feel like, then you're thinking dispositor.
So this program you have for this chart doesn't do that little dashed line for the intercepted so people can see it visually better?
That's correct. It does not do that.
Because that might help them see what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. They have quite a bit of trouble with drawing programs. We got quite a bit of information here. We got a lot of good information, and you can ask for the whole world.
Well, yeah.
H and I are very simple. The depositor of the sun, we're saying the sun is always very important, and therefore its depositor, that which springs it, which in this case is Venus, it gets beefed up a little bit. It gets about 6 points. And Mercury is the ruler of the ascendant, and the depositor of the ruler of the descendant happens to be Mercury, so Mercury gets more. Mercury is pretty piggy in here. It gets quite a bit. All right, and then we come to K.
J.
We've looked at J already.
The
We said,
depositor
we didn't
of
look
the
at J.
planet.
Of the most planets. The depositor of the most planets.
Mercury.
What?
Mercury.
Yes. Let's see. Mercury deposits itself, and it deposits the 3 planets in the 5th house. So almost a third of the almost a quarter of the planets are deposited by Mercury, so it gets a few points from that. It's key to quite a few things. All right, the depositor of the largest house first in K. The largest house is the 5th or the 11th house. So for the 5th house, Mercury gets 5 points. For the 11th house, since there are co-rulers of Pisces, both Neptune and Jupiter get 5 points. And then the next is planet that rules 2 successive cusps gets up to 5 points. The Sun rules 2 successive cusps on the 3rd house, so it gets 5. And Saturn and Uranus each get 5 for ruling both the cusps of the front and the back of the 9th house.
You've given Jupiter +5?
Yes,
Where is that again?
because it co-rules the largest house.
Okay, co-ruler. Okay.
Yeah. We have no contingency planets, which is the last thing that can get 5 points, because there is nothing between between Pisces and Aries, between the cusp in Pisces and the beginning of Aries. There's no planet there, and there's no planet between 28, 27 of Virgo and the beginning of Libra.
What about on the backside, like
On the
Mars?
backside, if you wanted, you're right on. I was just going to mention that. You could take a little bit away, 2 or 3 or 4 points from Mars, because it's in the 3rd sign of the house, and it's sort of the runt of the litter. It's it's like when there are 5 pups and 4 tits, and a lot of things have to be gone through before before you get to Mars.
Can you see why it's the biggest? Because
Things like that are important in horary astrology
and
more than
those
they are
have the
in natal
biggest space.
astrology.
You wouldn't think those were the largest.
I want to go back to H,
H,
and you were saying
the
Venus?
depositor of the sun.
Yes,
The sun is in the 12th house. What's on the cusp of the 12th house?
Taurus.
Who rules Taurus?
Okay, Venus.
Okay, it's just getting used to it.
So, I'm still having a problem with depositor. Why don't we use that as an example? How that, what the relationship is there. What the depositor means in this instance.
The depositor means that it is necessary to open up all 12th house activities. And since the sun is in the 12th house, it needs some kind of toehold or something to open the door up, and that's what the depositor does.
So Venus is in the 2nd house. You look at the house that it's in?
That's right. I think you would say that in this case, Venus and Jupiter indicate extraordinary wealth. And his extraordinary wealth is something that has to do with the immediate past life, which is the 12th house. And his ability to find himself depends on how he has dealt with wealth from his immediate past life. Even his ability to know himself depends on what he does with wealth in this life, because the key to getting to know himself is what opens up the 12th house.
Well, could you say something like if he had enough wealth, he would be able to, spend the time or money, resources to find out those things?
That's actually what happened, because he was in some ways like he was in jail. This was over a century ago. It was like 120 years ago, and he had to have bodyguards. Very few people had to have that, and it's because he was so wealthy, and people wanted his wealth, and the way he got the wealth was, wealth was the reason that he was in prison. He was imprisoned because of his wealth.
And do you get that because Venus is ruling the cusp of the 12th? If there was a different ruler, it might be a different reason?
Yes. Or you put Venus in the 3rd house, it would be something because he had foot and mouth disease, that he was in exile or something.
But that would still pertain to it having to match up to the rulership of the...
That's correct.
Okay.
So I'm sorry.
I was just going to go a little further. Would that also be like, you were talking about like jail and stuff, would that also be like martyrdom?
Yes. But this is not...
That doesn't match with this chart.
It's not a chart of a martyr.
The fact that you have Jupiter and Venus in Cancer, with Jupiter being, is that kind of a ruler or a co-ruler of Cancer?
No.
Or an exaltation or something there?
Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, yes. But
Okay.
that we covered in the other chart last week.
What I'm getting at here is, so that makes for, I want to say, almost obscene amounts.
The fact that Jupiter is exalted may mean that he took the American economy for 180 million rather than 170 million. Which is what he did. And maybe, I think that was the number.
Okay, and it wouldn't make any. I mean, it wouldn't make any difference if that wouldn't make any difference. That would be the situation if well, no, I guess not.
All right.
It couldn't be. All right, thank you.
So we now go to, we're coming now to the most controversial thing.
Oh.
So we add everything up and we put the totals in column 17.
Okay, wrong column? No, right column. How can that be?
Column 17 is the totals of everything.
Oh, okay, 14, 15, and 16.
Yeah. But in number 18, we do something that's pretty radical and something that is quite variable, extremely variable. There's no way I can give you any rule of thumb. It's something that you have to use observation. There are percentage factors given on the backside for step 18. We're saying that Pluto in most people's lives, most average people's lives, Pluto is only 55% active. And that Neptune is only 70% active, and that Uranus is 85% active. It means that most people are not yet evolved to the point that they can respond to the active planets full out. Now, this is the part of the system that has changed appreciably In every edition, I have had different numbers because of different experiences, and it's gotten to the point that even though it says 55, 70, and 85, I don't use those in quite that way. I do it by observation. Some of this you have to come back to. And I'm saying that if you interact with someone and find out how Neptunian they are, then you can determine how much you multiply by. But I have never yet run into somebody that's completely Neptunian, even if they're outright totally insane. Of course.
So you multiplied the 167
by
85% to get
Right.
that 150.
Yep.
Oh, you bring them down.
You bring them down. You bring them all down. Now, usually this brings all kinds of disagreement from people, especially people that think that they're super geniuses. And now maybe Nikola Tesla may have been something like a 90% Neptune, because he had unfolded that and he had enough sensitivity that he could hear a fly land on the table. But that was before there were all the automobiles going by and things like that, and where you could have that kind of silence. So maybe he could be, but that would be a special case. You just have to take. You have to. When you're doing an estimation, see, this is again. I'm giving you the same reasoning why I don't want to be authoritative, because when it comes to the octave planets, some people do respond to the octave planets, and they're numb, and they numb themselves even more. Like Neptunian people sometimes take a lot of drugs, and they make themselves even more numb.
Well, that's
Overstood.
It's an interesting concept too, though.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, Tesla couldn't stand false praise. He even walked out of award ceremonies where people were praising him to the hilt for being in the spirit of Thomas Edison, when we knew that Thomas Edison was a droid.
Well, Thomas Edison was stealing and blind too.
Well, he wasn't the only one stealing him blind.
Westinghouse.
But I mean, the U.S. Navy actually stole him blind more than anybody else. They were responsible for his patent infringements.
Interesting concept, though, when you were talking about the fact that Tesla might be able to hear a fly, but that excludes the din and the noise. Now, I wonder how many other people are being stifled from that ability right now because of the environment we live in.
I think that the blunting conditions of our environment blunt sensitivities so that it's hard for there to be somebody with that kind of sensitivity. Now, when I say blunting conditions, I'm talking about all the goop in the air and the water and everything else make it very hard for there to be a really sensitive person, except for negative sensitivities by all of the allergens and the things that we introduce that were never intended to be. And I think that as we get control of ourselves, we will also get control of the environment. Because self-control and societal self-control will go hand in hand. And in the same way that we keep pollutants out of our bodies when we're individually self-controlled, the same thing will happen with the environment, and then I think there will be a lot of very sensitive people in the world. Because you show me a person who is exceptionally self-controlled, not repressed, but self-controlled, and I'll show you a person that has a sensitivity that is a really good sensitivity that is of their own making, and it's not just a sensitivity that they're overwhelmed by what comes in from the world.
Even harder to do, so you have to be stronger.
So these are the numbers that we come out with. And we take column 17 and the last three columns of three planets we take from column 18, and that's what we use to fill in 19, 20, and 21.
You can use it, I can't find the page.
All right? The assignment is to finish up the first half by next week. and I'll try to have by next class. I'll try to have everything printed out for the next half, of the charts.
So we should assign values.
Yes, do your own and then see what you come up with compared to me, and you'll find out that you're not very much different than me, even without those cheat sheets that you all want.
I think I've got down 15, 16, 17, and 18, but believe it or not, I'm still real vague about 14. So that's kind of going right back to the basics, but that's something I'll
14
have
is
to
you
work
write
on.
down each of the aspects, and then you take the number for each of the aspects. That takes you right back. Oops, I got it here somewhere. That takes you right back to the first thing we did, the aspect worksheet.
Yeah, that takes you to 13, right?
That does all of 14. See, what the result that you come with from number 11 and number 12, every solar aspect from column 11 and column 12 in the aspect worksheet gets put into column 14 of the planet worksheet.
Richard, let's say.
Oh, okay, I see.
Let's say
Okay.
a planet in a house is, in one sign and the cusp is a different sign. Does it make it harder to get at that planet if it's not in its own sign, if the cusp is a different sign?
Yes. Yes. If it's in the second sign of a house. Like, say part of a house is Aries, and then the tail end of the house is Taurus. If a planet is in the Taurus part, it is harder to get at it, and it is weakened, yes. Especially that's in horary astrology, that works that way when it's in the second sign. You see that if it's in the first part, it has the same dispositor and the same depositor, one and the same planet. But if it's in the second part, it has a dispositor that's different from its depositor.
Right.
And so it's, there's a mixed signal kind of thing going there, even though one represents a state of healing and one represents a state of opportunity. Okay. All right, good. See, it only took us a little over an hour.
Doesn't mean we understand it.
Yeah, but you'll have a lot of examples, and when you try doing it yourself, it'll all clear up.
Therein lies.
doing the homework, huh? Yeah.
It's difficult. I mean,
You want to see how to make a pentagon with 3 circles?
No.
No.
Let me turn the thing off first.
So if it's
I thought 2 was going to be.
this